What if I told you that how much you earn has little to do with your current financial status? I know a number of people would say, if I earn more, I will be more financially stable. If I earn more, I will be able to afford those things that I really need. I am not saying it's not part of it, but it's not all of it. Your current financial situation has a lot more to do with your current financial behavior and your financial decisions. You will find some people, they earn a lot, but they basically live paycheck to paycheck. And then you would find some other people, they don't earn so much, but they are very comfortable and financially stable. Today, I'll be sharing with you what 1% of us do to manage our money in a way that we don't have that financial palpitations when it comes to meeting our basic needs. So stay with me. There is a certain rule that has to be followed if you really want to gain mastery over your finances. And I have seen a couple of variations of this particular rule. I've seen the 2020 60, I've seen the 25 15 60, and it doesn't matter. I think it's about defining what works for you. Today, I will be sharing my own version of this and how this has really helped me, to manage my money well and run away from that financial anxiety. And it is the 20-20-60 rule. When you earn your money, because I always say that our earnings are not meant for just now. Whatever you earn on a monthly basis, it's not meant to be expended in that same month, 100%. You have to have something built for the future. I'm sure you must have heard that before. But what most people do is that they save or invest whatever is left. So this rule says you cannot do that. If you really, really want to be financially stable, financially independent, you want to free yourself from that financial worry, you have to do this first. Take a percentage of your monthly earnings. So let's say you get 100,000, for example. 20% of that has to be saved somewhere for your savings, investments, or whatever it is that helps you prepare for the future. I have spoken to a number of people, and what they would tell you is that the money is not even enough. It's not even enough to cover my expenses for the month. And what I always say in response is, imagine that you're earning 80% of your salary. Because it's a possibility that you're actually earning just 80% of it and not the entire 100%. So close your eyes. At least that's what I do. I close my eyes to that 20% to say, you know what, as far as I know, I am not earning it. And then I put it towards my future. I have a tracker that I can send to you. It's a free income and expense tracker that you can use to manage your finances in the same rule or in the same way that I am explaining to you. That 20%, I tagged it as future commitments. So it is basically expenses that relates to your long-term financial goals and planning. What I would expect to be under this 20% are savings for your emergency funds. I would expect things like, additional pension contribution for your retirement. I would expect that you're investing in stocks or bonds. I would expect that you're also saving for educational purposes. For example, you want to run a program or you want to just do something that would build your earning capability. Let it sit under this 20%. And this is why they call that 20% pay yourself first. And, I always say that when people say pay yourself first, they actually mean get the reward of the work that you're doing. Don't just spend everything on current expenses. The real reward is when you save this and it builds over time so that in the future, when you do not have the time, you do not have the resources, you do not have the energy to earn as much as you are earning now, you can always fall back on that. And you're not just relying on pension. You're also relying on some investments that you have made for yourself over the years when you have the time and the energy to work. So that's why I always advise that you set aside that 20%. If it is hard, assume you're not earning it. And advice is that you automate the process such that every month you don't have to do anything. By itself, it moves out of your account into your investment account or into your savings account. But it is important that this 20% moves that. So this 20%, basically, how I split it is 10% for savings, 10% for investments. However, I know that some people already have their emergency fund saved, and this is supposed to cover, say, 3 to 6 months. Some people even have 12 months emergency savings. You can do that if you want. But once you have that emergency savings, it is time to start investing the balance out of that 20%. So if you, for example, have your emergency savings saved up to, say, about 12 months or 6 months, depending, you can then move the entire 20% into your investments. There is no point just putting the money into an account where you get, say, 4%, 5%, for example, if you're in the UK, or interest. However, if you put it in investments, S&P 500 gives an average of 7 to 8% per annum. So what I always advise is, if you've maxed out on your emergency fund savings, just make sure you still have that 20% put aside somewhere. Now, you could invest in real estate, you could invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, whatever it is, but just make sure that 20% is for yourself and you're using it to pay yourself first. On emergency funds, I like to emphasize that this is for real emergencies. It's not where you put your hand into to get that Chanel bag. No, it's for real emergencies, for example, medical emergencies, because you see, life throws us all the surprises, and most times we are not even aware it's coming. So it could even be a job loss. It could be anything. Just make sure that you have saved your basic expenses to the tune of 6 months or even a year if you want to, in a place, so that you do not fall to the ground when those life surprises happen. You can comfortably support yourself for the next 6 months before you get something else doing or before you build it up again. So I think the idea is that 20% has to be used in a way that you're protecting yourself from any life shocks and you're also building for the future. That's on the 20% that you should back out from your earnings first. Now let's talk about the 60%. This is what I call current commitments. These are expenses that you need to pay for now. That should not exceed 60%. And I would explain. You have things like rent. I think I have on my list here, either rent or mortgage repayment or your rent savings. For those in Nigeria, for example, we pay on an annual basis. So you can keep saving up for that on a monthly basis. You don't want to wait until when it's time to pay and then you're like, oh, you didn't put this in a while. For example, insurance, utility, maintenance, repairs, those are things that would need you to, on a monthly basis, to fund. And then there are things like your transportation, either it's a car payment or a lease payment or public transport. You would have things like fuel, you would have things like groceries, food, healthcare, insurance. All those things, for example, will form part of your current commitments, and everything should round up to about 60%. This can include things like internet, phone bills, and all that. These are non-negotiable expenses, if you want to put it that way. They are non-negotiable, and they are basically necessary for daily living. So you have to be mindful that it doesn't exceed 60%. If you do your analysis now and you see that some things are, crossing over to, like, say, 70, you have to continuously look at all your, ticket items and then look at how you can start negotiating for something lower so that you can fall within that 60% bracket. And then we have the last 20%, because I am of the school of thought that even while I am saving for the future and I am meeting, current needs, current commitments, I also want to have fun. There is no point. I don't believe in the life where I save, invest, and I'm not currently enjoying life. So that 20% is for fun spends. And this can include your Netflix subscriptions. I put something here, your night out. I put something on, movies, travels, vacation, dining out, shopping, clothing, accessories, home decoration, gym membership, all those for spa treatments, salon visits, all that should fall under this last 20%, because you don't also want to be so frugal that you're not living life and you're just building for the future. So you leave 20% for all this. And of course, if this is exceeding 20%, you have to also look at how you can shrink this and let it fall within that 20%. Largely, you have to control your monthly earnings, directing it to exactly where you want it to go. If you leave it and wing it, you would realize that most of your earnings are being spent just on current commitments and of course fund spends, without much going into the most important part of it, which is your future commitments, which is developing yourself, learning, investing, and all those things. So we have to be mindful, super mindful of how we manage our spend. And you can start. You can start at any time. You can start now. And if you want my templates that I have designed for this purpose, what I have been using for many years, if you type in budget in the comment section, I'm going to send this to you for free. And you can start using this to manage and control your expenses. And trust me, in another 12 months, you will be very proud that you're seeing this video. Not just seeing this video, you're also taking action to better control your expenses, control your earnings, control your finances, like the 1% do. If this video made a lot of sense to you, I'll see you in the next video on why looking poor can be very important. I'll see you there.